We're taking a quick look at a different 53mm tall cooler. This one's from ID Cooling. The new IS-53-XT uses a 17mm thick fan. It's all black and it's very sleek. Welcome to Machines and More. One of the topics that I cover here on the channel is CPU cooling, quite often within the small form factor constraint. If you enjoy this type of content, please make sure that you're subscribed. So within small form factor cooling, this type of 92mm fan equipped cooler is going to be used when there is a cooler clearance of slightly more than 53mm or 53mm. If you have a little bit more, you can actually usually size up to one with a 120mm fan. Now in this context though, the footprint of the cooler doesn't overlap the RAM on a mini-itx board. So even if you have a little more, you might opt for one of these just to avoid that conflict. Where you might see a cooler like this used is going to be in a sandwich style case such as the Fractal Terra or Formd T1V2 like I have here. Because when you pair with a 3-slot GPU in either of those cases, you might be limited to somewhere around 53mm for your CPU cooler. So you're going to see this type of build nowadays quite a bit, just given how the GPU form factors have evolved. The often recommended cooler is going to be this one here. This is the Thermalright AXP90X53 full copper. It's a very good cooler, very hefty, and straight up, I'll just tell you now, the IS-53, it's not going to beat it. The IS-53-XT fins are aluminum, and it's a lighter weight heatsink. It does have the advantage of a slightly thicker 17mm fan, but that is not going to overcome just the thermal mass benefit that the Thermalright has. That's just physics. Now, in spite of that, though, I do think the IS-53-XT has value for SFF builders, so stay tuned here. So big thanks to ID Cooling for sending by the cooler. As with all my reviews, they are not paid reviews, and you're going to hear my honest opinion here. So I've actually been running this for a few months. It's been a very reliable cooler. I like it a lot. Taking a look at the cooler here. It's got 4 heat pipes running through a copper base, black coating. As mentioned, the Thermalright X53 full copper, it's much more substantial. The 500-gram heatsink alone weighs more than the 380-gram fan plus heatsink on the IS-53. The heatsink alone is roughly 310 grams for reference. Finish is very consistent. It's an even matte black throughout. 17mm fan attaches via screws, which is nice. This one maxes out at 3000 RPM. So oftentimes with these coolers, there will be unconventional ways to attach, right? So this AXP90, if you've ever installed one of these, you'll know that the heatsink has these posts that you thread in, and then it goes through the motherboard holes, and then you tighten up with nuts on the other side. It's not really elegant. What's nice about the IS-53 is that it uses a more conventional mounting bar system. So on the LGA 1700 and the LGA 1851 platforms that I tested on, it just uses a backplate and then the cooler threaded directly onto the mounting bars, which installed onto that. And the AMD setup will be similar, except it'll use the stock AM4, AM5 backplate. It's really straightforward. You don't have to really worry about flipping the backplate to avoid the keep-out zone or components in there, like you might with the Thermalright backplate and some Intel mini-itx motherboards. And for me, the big plus is if you're someone that likes to or has to take the heatsink off quite frequently, this setup here is just a lot easier than unmounting the entire board just to take the heatsink off. Maybe that use case is just me, but hey, you know, even if you just set it and forget it, I think this setup is much more forgiving, especially if you're new to this. Plus the fan screws on versus using clips. I tested on the 14600K paired with a B760-I first from ASUS. Without setting a power limit, this was running over 100 degrees and throttling back. So the Thermalright, it avoids throttling, so I had to test at 115 watts to get a proper comparison against the AXP90, otherwise the delta wouldn't be reasonable. This here is a noise equal level. As you can see here, it is quite a sizable gap for the AXP90. Now you can bump up the IS-53-XT fan to 100%, which is quite a big noise penalty from 90% that I tested at for the noise equal level. It's almost 3000 RPM. There's not really going to be a huge benefit here, so for your more noise optimized type of build, I would just try to stay below 90%. I also tested with LGA 1851. It can run an Intel Core Ultra 5 245K without power limits because of the thermal improvements with the new Intel design. It does get warm, but it did not need limiting here. So for many of you looking at deploying on a gaming build, in a gaming scenario where the CPU is going to run, at a lower power level, roughly 65 watts tested here, that 245K will end up moderately high at 2000 RPM. Here's just a quick example of the fan noise for your reference. So yeah, power-wise, this cooler will be best paired with moderate power CPUs, ideally your stock TDP 9700X or 9600X, and it also will be acceptable for the 9800X ready or 245K level of power draw, especially if you're only going to be sticking to gaming loads versus 100% rendering with it all the time. Price-wise, this seems to be coming around $1 or so less than the $35 Thermalright full copper, so 35 US. So price, I think, is practically the same. So if you prioritize performance, I really don't see why you wouldn't go that route. This one does work well, though, with the benefit of an easy installation, and perhaps if you're going with an all-black build, that's priority versus, trying to fit this one into your color scheme, which is a little bit more difficult. So that'll do it for this review. Please give a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Links down below. Big thanks for watching today.